Welcome to my humble little office. My name is Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on April 8th, 2023 at approximately 4:18 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies I talk about are the ones that I personally live by. So this isn't a question of here's an idea, go and do it. This is a question of here is what I have come to understand and how I live my life. Now, this has had the benefit of turning my life around rather drastically and rather severely. Okay. Am I in perfect shape? Absolutely not. Do I have complications in my own life? Certainly. But the kicker here is if I can turn around and give you something to look at and go, okay, you tried this, it didn't work. Maybe not such a good idea. Okay. With that in mind, before I get underway here, and I should have done that, but before I get underway here, we have Adam in the first position here with the gold. Stephanie, you're right in with the silver, and then Terry comes in with the bronze. Okay, now with the way I was looking at it, and I'll get into the topic of the day shortly. I said I'm starting at 4:30, so the fact that I'm in 4:30 PST, the fact that I'm in a little early just means you have to suffer a little longer if you stick around. Where are we here? I do have to find that just so I can read a little easier. You'd think I'd figure this out, but no, gotta do it the hard way. And there we have it. So we bring that up. And since we're active, there we are. Bingo. Kill off the sound, and we are here. Now, of course, I do have my I guess I should grab that little book. Might just as well have this one because it tells me what we're looking at right now. What is today, the 8th? Okay, put those there for a second so I can actually read. And we look at April 8th and April. Okay, we're just 2 days outside the full moon. April 6th was the full moon. So that means Thursday, but we are on Sunday, and that will come into play momentarily. This is that funny little book that some of you may recognize. This is the Ephemeris. Now, I got told one day by one client in particular that if I didn't have this book memorized, I wasn't professional. Well, take a look at this. That's 4 months of planetary positions. Okay, including things like the sign, their actual location. Okay, this is what she wanted me to memorize. Now, bear in mind, this particular book runs from 2000 to 2100. Can you see there being a problem with memorizing it? So we will get to that in a little bit. Okay, where are my eyeballs here? And Joe, we are looking you in with honorable mention. And yes, we are absolutely going to. Thank you so much for that message. That was exactly what prompted me making certain that I got to this topic today. So I'm really glad you showed up. Okay. Now, before I forget, 2 major factors. One, we go to that's the 8th, not the 9th, but the 10th. And Joe, this one's specifically to you. On Monday, assuming, of course, I actually managed to get back here on Monday, because that seems to be a bit of a glitch on occasion. we will be discussing empathy and just exactly what it is, how it works, and whether there is any functional difference between the different types. Now, what is this? Oh, yes, the work I have been doing. This is a starting work on yet another book. But that's hard copy, so let's get that where it belongs. Yeah, we're going to putter around in circles here on occasion. That is not what I desire. Where's the one I desire? Right there. And by taking that, we can pop that in there, and now we know where it is. Isn't that a novel idea? Okay, where are we? 424. So that's why I'm basically puttering around going, okay, what am I working with here? And is it functional? Usually I'm somewhat dysfunctional, in case you hadn't noticed. And gravity does work. This is a good thing. Okay. Take those. Open this file up. Folder, rather. And that way, when I get ready to take off and do something, I've got it handy. Put that there. Get this book, because I will require it, but it's easy to find if I have it here. Now, let's not forget, when you're striving to keep your life organized, first rule of thumb, don't wait for it. You pick what you're not content with, and you start altering right away. Now, this sheet, anything on the back? No. But that does tell me the card files and what have you, so that can go over here because that's where I'll be working on it. Now, what's that one? Thanks for the question. What is that? Okay, don't need that. That hurt. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, now, where are we? We're at 426. Coming close, anyway. Yeah, like I said, I'm just puttering around to make sure that I've got the right information here to work with. Now, what did I set up yesterday? Not that. Those are the books I have to move around. What is this one? Could have sworn, and in all fairness, I usually do. Unfortunately, I tend to try and keep that down to a minimum, i.e. when I'm annoyed, which is most of the time, but what the heck. Let's see, what is, okay, that and that can go off of this desk. That's what I'm working on there that's for the information. This sheet here okay. This particular sheet can be turned inside out, as in done. Then I can use the back of it. Again, this whole idea with notes. Okay, I always work on both sides. I'll run the notes on one sheet, and then when I'm done, I'll flip it over and use the other side. Now, football, how you doing? Oh, don't worry, it stays where it belongs. Part of the reason, though, football, that the moon may frighten you is because of the misinformation you've been given. Okay, and that's where a lot of the complication comes in. There's a lot of hullabaloo around it that is very badly misdirected, in my opinion. Now, I got a kick out of it yesterday. Yeah, yesterday on Spaced Out Radio, there was a gentleman that came into the chat room, and it was priceless. The gentleman come up, and sadly, he may have been right. His comment, which I ignored, by the way, and unfortunately so did Dave, was, "I know more than that guy." And I'm thinking, like, yay, whoopee, rank yourself right up there. I don't really care, because I'm already fully convinced that half of what I know is, shall we say, potentially misinterpreted, which is why I tell you, do not just take my word for things. Absolutely do your own research. Now let's start with the obvious thing, because we're coming on 4:30 here. Now, I know you asked for information on the moon there, Joe. Okay, and do understand, I'm not going to go into whether it's a blood moon, a gray moon, a supermoon, none of that. Yes, I've been studying astrology for a long time, but I found some major flaws in it. So let's keep to the so to speak, quantifiable facts. Okay, we'll start there and then just go with a general overview. If somebody decides that they want to challenge me on a definition for what the moon means, knock yourself out. It's going to be a short-lived argument, because I just don't have time for them. The human body, the corporeal human body, is comprised mostly of water. Okay. Well, I'll tell you, I have no doubt about that at all there, football. From my standpoint especially, since I know very few names, much less histories or backgrounds or anything like that. Okay, boy bands. And I get a kick out of it, because to me, either a band is good or a band is bad, in my opinion. Okay. I don't know which band is which. As a matter of fact, very few of the artists that are out there, whether they're a band or a solo act or a duet or whatever, very few of them do I actually know who they are. But then it hasn't really been a priority of mine. Okay, but when we take a look at the human body, the corporeal body is primarily liquid. Now, the reason the moon has the impact it does, and we're going to get into some of the specifics, and for pity's sakes, people, if you have a question, even if it's not on the topic we're discussing about, would you be so kind as to put the question in all caps so I can find it? Okay, just makes it so much easier for me. I'll tell you, last night I was watching the chat room that Dave was trying to track. How he does it, I have no clue, because it just travels so fast. Okay, now, when we take a look, we already know the moon affects the tidal waters on Earth. What most people don't realize is the moon also affects the tidal flow in your own body. And every time your body shifts because of the pull of the moon, it will change your emotional interaction. This has been scientifically proven. Okay, so it's not just me sitting there, well, I think it might work that way. This is something that the scientists have taken the time to figure out. I don't like that, Mark. Okay, this is something that they have quantifiable proof on. Now, where things get screwy is this whole concept of the full moon and the whole term lunacy, which boils down to the effect of the lunar cycle on the human psyche. Now, you talk to most astrologers or most astronomers or virtually everybody, okay, and they'll tell you the full moon creates havoc. And certainly it does. But what would be wise to consider, and it was one of those questions that came up very early in my career looking at the astrological impact, is the full moon when it is sitting is in the same phase as you were born, will amplify your emotions. Okay. In other words, under a full moon, if you're born under a full moon, okay, it is like, and I should put it this way, when it's in the same phase as you were born under, it will amplify your positive emotions. Okay, because then it is working in the same flow, ebb and flow of your own natural rhythm. Where things get complicated is when the moon is in the opposite phase to what you were born. So therefore, if you were born under a full moon, okay, and a full moon comes along, you're going to have your positive emotions, your positive drives, your positive energies are going to be amplified. Okay. You may find even many of your physical reactions are also amplified. But like I said, they get amplified in a positive standpoint. The people that are primarily in trouble, if you will, okay, are the ones those of you born under a new moon. Okay. If you're born under a new moon, then when the full moon comes around, you're going to be in direct opposition. You're going to find your stress level goes through the roof. You may find your coordination a little off. You may find yourself very foggy as far as being able to think straight. Okay. Now, for those of you that do watch astrology itself, excellent there, football. Now, if you keep an eye on that, if you look at what the moon phase was, watch for when it is lined up with yours and when it is in opposition. Now, do understand the effect of the real strong effects of the moon are on 2 days either side of the full moon or of the new moon. Both are equally important. Okay, so if you were born under that's why I had that book out. No, that's the wrong one. This particular book, as you can see, is a little bit more worn. This particular book runs from 1900 to 2000. So if I open this up, okay, and we go to 1963, which is when I was born. Whoop, that's 58, 59. Scan forward and we get to 63. Okay, now May 1363. Where are we here? Okay, I keep forgetting which one that is. Anyway, I'm not directly on that particular day. I'm not directly under a full moon or a new moon. However, it gets screwy, or potentially screwy in my case. If I go forward to August 1st of 68, August, down there. Yeah, this is why my emotions tend to stay pretty much the same. They don't tend to fluctuate because in both of my setups, I'm not actually under either one of the completed moons. iVoice says, welcome aboard. I'm glad you could join us. The answer to your question there is absolutely it does, but here's why. It's not so much that the state of the moon affects the outcome of magical rituals directly. It's that it affects your concentration or the concentration of whoever is striving to pull them off. Okay. And because magical rituals require focus. They require you to be in dominant focus of what your intent is. So if you're born under a full moon comes around. Okay, like right now, we are still under the influence of a full moon. Okay, and I will put it to you this way. If you want a relatively instant answer, if you do not know the phase the moon was in when you were born, ask. This funny little book will tell me what the phase of the moon was. But realistically, it boils down to an issue of the phase of the moon affects you as an individual, and in so doing, has a direct impact on whatever magical rituals you're striving to accomplish or striving to fulfill. I do appreciate that, and there's a really football. I love what you did there. Thank you so much. And just literally dawned on me. Okay, waxing is when it's approaching the new moon. Waning is when it's leaving the full moon or the new moon and heading for the full. And the reason I say it comes out kind of comically, okay, the reason I say it's sort of comical is because if you think, the way I can remember that now is relying on the new moon. You wax on, you're arriving at the moon, and you wax off, and you're heading for the full moon. So we wax on, wax off. It's great. Works out great. Joe's just written in here. I haven't been to the mall in 20 years. My local mall, but local 4 News on Facebook just now. Active shooter in Great Lakes, crossing outlets, which is near me. Yeah, they do. And, here's the thing. Joe's just going, these shootings got to stop. And here's the stupid thing. How you doing there, Kimberly? Glad you could join us. Here's the stupid thing. With the media and with social media going, there's a shooting going on. And that is the primary focal point. Okay. It's going to amplify. And here's why. Okay. Most of these people are doing things, whether it's conscious or subconscious is irrelevant. Okay. When somebody does something that is wrong and it gets broadcast, or when they do something right and it gets broadcast, they're getting recognition. Now, this may not be a conscious decision on their part, but it is something that is amplified again by the phase of the moon. So the way to slow it down is quite serious. And this sounds way too simple. It can't be this easy. But frankly, it is. We've got to stop promoting. When I talk about promoting, I mean making the criminal activity headline news. Yes, the criminal activity, the violent tendencies have to be bore witness to. Absolutely, they do. But by making them the primary focal point, the people that are looking to make a name for themselves are getting their wish. Okay. The people that are in trouble and I heard somebody one day say that the school shootings aren't because the kids are naturally wanting to shoot everybody. They're just tired of not being listened to. And I will tell you, pulling a gun out is not a good way to get listened to. So we go back to that thing, and I'm not going to drift very far from the moon today, but we go back to that little issue, or at least I'm going to try not to. Every time you post something that is negative, or you read something that is negative, okay, if it's positive, every time it's a negative thing that you post, okay, post 2 things that are positive. Okay. And this can be something as simple as Jane Doe down in Florida got married today. Okay. Or maybe it's look at the, here's a film of a bear pulling a crow out of the water, which, by the way, I have seen those videos. Hey, angels, how we doing? Glad you could join us. But you post two things, and it starts here. We post, two things that are positive for every negative one that we uncover. Okay, it's that tilting of the balance. If you think of scales, okay, the more that you put the positive energy out, the stronger the positive energy gets. But it is up to the individual. Now, of course, we have this neat little problem of immediate gratification, which creates an interesting situation. Personally, I would love the world to actually just get along. It would be nice. Would be a nice change. I haven't seen it in a while. Now, again, very important that we really take a look at why you're feeling like, if you're in the first rule of thumb, okay, the first rule, one of the first rules of thumb when you're looking at what's going on, why are you edgy? My personal recommendation would be to take a look at where the moon is as compared to where it is in your chart. Okay. This may give you insight as to why your emotions are a little wired or why your focus may be off. It may be interesting it may be rather relevant to why you're more reactionary than normal. Okay. But again, it boils down to, this isn't just a question, and this is where we get into a bit of a snag. This is not just a question of myself or your guys' selves just being positive or just acting in a positive way. This is a question of all of us working together and rebroadcasting, reposting the positive different issues. In all fairness, football, number one, and sad to say it's very true, but I'm Canadian. I don't know how many prime ministers we've had, so I cannot tell you how many U.S. presidents you guys have had at all. Okay, but I would surmise most of them have run into off-worlders. Whether they admit it or not is not a relevant concern. I would be inclined to say most political leaders in all countries, and I mean the primary political leaders, most of them have had some contact. Problem is, mankind is still looking at the world going, but people have to be kept in the no, absolutely not, but give me half a second. iVoices is asking, do demons worship the moon? I can tell you right off the bat, no, but on the other hand, I'm going to go one further than that. And we're going to take a look at the daemon here. No. The daemon, they don't worship the moon, but they do call their primary source, their creator, if you will, Nataj. Okay. And Nataj, to be clear, is a reptilian. Okay. Now, yes, she's a very powerful, very old reptilian. And by the way, that does not mean she's out to conquer the world. Okay. But no, I have no doubt that some daemon do worship the moon. Some daemon undoubtedly are what you would call pagan. Okay. Some daemon worship a very definitive spiritual entity, but on the whole, the majority of them, by whatever name they choose to use, okay, the majority of daemons actually worship Nataj. At least that's what they call her. Okay. That's where you start with. But again, we must understand, okay, Oh heavens no. The Daemon are a very aggressive group. They see the person as the leader as the one that takes dominant control. They do not point the finger and go, it's all his fault, or we're going to put him up on a pedestal. We're going to put Satan up on a pedestal and go, hail Satan. They just don't do that. Okay. Unless, of course, somebody comes up and goes, I'm Satan and I'm going to rule you. They may hail him with sticks and stones and rocks and firepower or whatever they've got available. But they don't worship him. That's for dang certain. Okay. In the Daemon world, you actually have to earn your reputation. Not just have somebody say, oh, this person from thousands of years ago is the reason we're here, so let's keep looking to the past. They look at it and go, okay, maybe he was here, maybe he was here, maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was a great leader, maybe he wasn't. The fact of the matter is, in today's world, John is a stronger leader because John is in the here and now. Okay, now clearly, if we're talking daemons, John is not a daemon name. Okay, but they absolutely do not see Lucifer as their leader. Okay, because quite frankly, well, number one, he's not. Okay, but the other thing is, when we look at the issue of the daemon, do they pay attention to the moon? Certainly, but here's why they pay attention to the moon: because a full moon makes it easier to hunt. Okay, a full moon, especially on Earth, makes it easier to hunt because for some bizarre reason, full moons, cloudless sky, and all of a sudden you got a lot of light. Okay, but this is also one of the reasons why many people turn to the sun, because it's easier to see, it's warm, it's inviting, the whole 9 yards. The moon itself is a cold light. But understand, the moon is a cold light because it's reflected light. Okay, net result, it doesn't exactly hold the heat all that well. Now, I'm wondering, I didn't pull it up, and that's okay. I'll worry about that later. But no, when we're looking at the moon does have a direct impact. Okay. Oh, I did not notice her come in, so she must have. Christine, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Hope your day's been going well. The nice part about working with the moon. Okay, and again, the moon is Henry's just asking, does moonlight actually make things colder? The answer is no. Not by any appreciable amount. The reality of it is that when you're looking at the moon, when you're looking at the impact of it, it's not a question of it cooling things down. You kind of require a breeze to do that. Or water works really well. But moon does affect the conscious and the subconscious stabilization that you may be going through. Because again, it affects the ebb and flow of liquid. And most of the corporeal human is liquid. Okay, now I've heard everything from 84 to 96%. And I have no idea who calculated that or how they came about it. Okay, all I know for certain is that the moon itself, from everything I've seen, it's not that it makes it colder. It's that because the sun is hitting the earth from the other side at night, okay, you don't have that constant warming. Because you got to remember, when sunlight comes down, first of all, it hits the earth, and then the heat radiates back up. While on the other side of the sun, on the other side of the earth, the sun is hitting the earth on the western hemisphere, for instance. on the eastern hemisphere at the same time. Okay, or north and south, take your pick. Okay, at the same time, the heat is still radiating off of the Earth. Net result is getting colder. So no, the moonlight itself does not actually appreciably alter the temperature of the planet. Okay, and of course, if it ever gets to the point where it's that close that it does, we could have another problem on our hands. Where are we here? Yeah, Christine, we can actually really thank Joe for that one. He caught a hold of me through YouTube, the YouTube channel, and specifically requested it. Okay, now where is that other thing I was looking at? I've had to start getting ready. I did get confirmation my eldest son is moving home again, which is great from my standpoint. What, pray tell, is that? That is information that I do not require. That's always handy. And that solved that problem. Yeah, I've had to start rearranging my office. Getting prepared to move this. Okay. Yeah, Joe, did you check to see, have you looked up where the full moon is regarding when you were born? Because if you'd like, if you haven't, I can look that up for you, or you can look it up on the net, your call. By the way, the other thing the full moon will do, or a complete moon, whether it's full or new, doesn't matter. Okay. The other thing it will do is affect communication lines, and I am referring to the electrical ones. Because again, that's fabulous there, football. In all fairness, from my standpoint, extended family boils down to this. You've got the birth family, which is the people you're born to, and you've got your chosen family, which are the friends. Anything you call family, if you're getting along, you're working together, you're getting the support you require, okay, you're in good shape. Okay. I mean, I love the comment that, blood is thicker than water. Quite frankly, it is. And if your water is thicker than blood, there may be a problem with your septic system. Where are we here? Okay. Now here's the neat thing. When I take a look at this, Christine's just going the full moon around the end of March, and the way I was feeling was kind of negative and feeling worried. This month the moon is full and you feel fine, which means there's another conjunction happening or another opposition happening, or possibly your Neptune itself may well have been in opposition to where the moon was. Lunar, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Yeah, just if you're going to play pin the tail on a donkey, do not use a real donkey. They will kick the stuffing out of you. And they'll do it quite happily. I wouldn't do well in Texas there football, because frankly, and don't get me wrong, football I do enjoy more than some sports. Okay, the thing, like I do remember saying the one real important factor from my end as far as football goes is at least there aren't that many actual fights during a football game. You know, well, yeah, I was kind of hoping that if it's a law down there, football, that it would apply to men and women, and theoretically it'll apply to children. Myself, I've always had a problem with the sports side of things because I've always been really strongly. I've never missed except in tie games. I have never missed in one sporting event, be it football, be it hockey, be it basketball, be it darts. It has never mattered. It's never mattered. I've never missed once. Okay. When there's been a definitive winner, I've always hit right on the money as to which one is going to win. I can always tell you that, and yet I refuse to bet on any game at all. And here's why. Okay. The reason I won't bet on a game is because I know absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, that whoever gets the most points by the end of the game wins. Whether it's 1 point above everybody else or it's 100 points above everybody else, every team, every time somebody gets the most points, that's the one that wins. It doesn't ever fail. Okay. Now, of course, if you end up with a tie game, then, well, you end up with a tie game. Okay. I remember years ago, back in the Middle Ages, okay, they played a variation on football. They carried their swords with them, their swords and maces with them, while they were running with what amounted to the ball. Hey, Blue, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The reality is, sports themselves, I've never been big into sports. And yes, that's gotten me into trouble, especially up here in Canada, where theoretically everybody and their dog is supposed to be really, really excited about hockey. I'm looking at it going, okay, they're playing hockey, they're chasing a puck around the ice. It takes phenomenal athleticism in most sports. Okay. And, but you only have to get 1 point ahead. So, and again, you'll find that people, and this really does, if you watch the full moon, watch the after game parties on a full moon compared to the ones on a waxing or a waning moon. And you'll find that and of course, if it's waning, well, you're likely to get wet too. But you are likely to find that parties during a full moon are much more enhanced than on a new moon. And the reason for that, partially because the full moon gives you the illusion of it being daylight as well. Okay. And people seem to be more relaxed during lighter times. You give a lunar eclipse on a cloudy night, and it is a recipe for emotional disaster. Okay. But what happens is the time when the moon gets closer, and I am not an astronomer, so I'm not going to tell you when the moon is at its closest point. Okay. Which I think is called the apogee, but I could be wrong there. Again, not trained in that field. But when the moon is at its closest point, emotions are going to be that much higher yet, simply because of the impact on the water flow, okay, on the liquid flow, if that makes any sense. But when we're looking at the full moon, okay, it literally boils down to an issue of optical vision, because it depends on where the moon is as compared to where the sun is, as compared to where Earth is, as to whether or not you're going to see a full moon. Now, of course, to see a full moon, the sun's got to be back behind you to see the full moon in front of you. That way it can light up the biggest, we'll try English. That way it can light up a more complete amount of the surface area. Okay, and of course, when you're looking at a new moon, it's because Earth is here, the moon is here, and the sun's way over here, making the moon appear dark. Okay, but this is why I say find out when your moon is, what state the moon was in to start with. That will give you an idea of what's coming. The other part of that is very necessary is to look at where your Neptune is, because Neptune affects the subconscious. Okay, and again, the full moon will affect Neptune, as it will your emotions. Okay, so I mean, there's basically, in a nutshell, the full moon is a great thing and it is very useful. But we have to realize that just because it's a full moon does not mean everybody is going to get negatively or positively affected. Half of the people won't even recognize what's going on. They won't even notice it. Okay, of course, I'm a firm believer that there's three types of people in the world. Those that make things happen, those that watch things happen, and the massive majority are those that wonder what happened. Okay, but the full moon will amplify the positive and the negative. So really, the more you're aware of where things are sitting, the pertinent ones would be where your moon is, and where your natal moon is, and where your natal Neptune is. Yeah, I didn't actually see Apocalypto. I don't even know if I saw the advertisement for it. But I do have a tendency of looking at the apocalyptic movies. Okay, to give an idea what people are thinking in those terms. Yeah, let's see, 2006. iVoices. The answer there, from my experience, no. iVoices is just asking, do some people transform into werewolves on a full moon? Okay, on a full moon night. The answer is, contrary to the movies, what does happen to some people, because they get emotionally overcharged in a negative fashion, some will go temporarily nuts. They will certainly lash out, and some of them have been known to kill people. But no, they do not all of a sudden transform and become this great big half wolf, half man. Okay, but do understand, when the emotions run that high, what happens? Okay, what does happen is the emotions get that high, and then all of a sudden you've got an interesting situation. Then your emotions get out of control, or the individual's does, and something sets them off. And it may be something as simple as a scent. Okay, something sets them off and they become absolutely brutal, but they still look human. In all fairness, they still are human if that's what they were to start with. So no, the Hollywood transformation thing, it's a wonderful thing. But does it happen in the real world from everything I've seen? No, it doesn't. But people will get much more agitated and thereby much stronger, much more resilient to pain. Okay. So that kind of thing does affect them. But is it likely to make them go all of a sudden become a physical transformation? The answer is not, from anything I've ever seen. Yeah, probably not. Christine's just going, I would not be happy to get hairy due to a full moon. I I mean, the one advantage to it from my standpoint is I actually personally like the flavor of blood, but not into the whole vertical bar scene. You know, so I mean, when we take a look at the stories about, the stories told in your science fiction stories, in the children's literature, in the Hollywood movies, about somebody all of a sudden physically transforming. Everything I've seen says that is not the way that quite works. Benny, we are looking at the effect of the moon on people. Okay, and from an emotional impact standpoint. There are, football, there are some shapeshifters, but no, an actual shapeshifter is never human. Okay, and I don't use the term never very often. The other thing you got to remember is that that people will change their personality the moment the full moon hits. People that are already on the edge of shifting thought process can be pushed over by that increased tidal pressure. Okay. Are they likely to go from being a vegan to being a carnivore? No. But they may go from being passive aggressive to being aggressive. Okay. And again, this is a question of the impact the moon has on emotional stability. What have we got here? Yeah. Blue just going, a local barbershop could solve the hairy problem during the full moon. And that would make sense if you think about it, Kimberly, but thank you so much for the corroboration. When the full moon hits, people that are already aggressive and somewhat controlled may lose control very, very adversely. And I'm not entirely certain how you can lose control in a positive fashion. Oh, yes, I am. Okay, and we're not going to go too far down this road, but the bedroom is one place where people lose control if it is mutually agreed upon. It's one of those areas where losing control to a degree is not a bad thing. But you will find not only are the other nice little concept there. What do we got here? Yeah, and that's the neat part. There's a lot of tools out there that are being used. But here's the funny thing there, Benny. Because Benny's going, well, I know some things about that technology machine that's maintaining a lower frequency over humanity. The funny thing about that is it will not affect everybody. Okay. Mankind, because humans are so diverse, the machine certainly will affect some people. Much like when you go to the dentist, that in the x-ray machine they use to take a picture of your jaw, okay, will affect some people. For me, that x-ray machine literally makes me dizzy. Okay. But again, the people that it can affect mostly, okay, are the ones that are frankly, and pardon it if it upsets somebody, I got over it. People that are weaker willed are more likely to be affected and more likely to be, if you will, influenced by a deliberate change in bioelectric fields. Okay, and yes, technology can amplify that. Well, the neat little part there, football, is if mankind ever actually develops AI, it is an absolute disaster waiting to happen. The funny part about it is if they build the AI right, the moon will have just as bad an effect on them. Okay. Simply because, like I said, the state of the moon does affect the electromagnetic field. And let's face it, AI are built on electromagnetics. Yeah, this is one of the reasons I have major problems with dealing with medical, because it throws me off. And of course, my healing rate just compensates for everything else. But no, when we look at the moon, people look at it and go, is that a natural concept? Well, let's start off with the obvious thing. Obvious from my end. It depends on your definition of constructed. Okay. But the moon is a naturally occurring object that did end up in orbit way before mankind was even a functional thought. Okay. Now, I love when scientists go, well, we've taken samples and it's only this old. You might want to go to the core of the moon to find out how old the thing is. Okay. Taking a sample off the surface of the moon to determine its age is like taking a sample of bark to determine how old a tree is. Okay. It doesn't work all that well. Not a problem there, Henry. Well, I shouldn't say it's not a problem. In all fairness, I'm not a controlled telepath. But I'm glad I was able to answer your question. But no, the moon itself has been here pretty much just about as long as the Earth itself has been here. Okay, but trying to figure out how old it is, looking at the stuff on the surface, you got to remember, much like the Earth, the moon is constantly getting bombarded by off moon particulates, by little meteors, by little comets, whatever you want to call them. Put a title to them. Okay, but those craters on the moon didn't happen because of a hiccup. Okay, the thing with Earth is the atmosphere is so much of a deeper envelope that it manages to burn a lot of them off before they ever get to Earth. Yeah, Joe just going, oh, yeah. Joe goes, stranger things happen at night during full moon than a night without a full moon. And I'm not talking about the Netflix TV show, though that was a good show. Or at least I thought it was. But you are right. The full moon does tend to affect, it does tend to make things a little bit more complicated, but something you might want to consider is that it's not necessarily that more things happen. Okay, when we're looking, more strange things happen on a full moon, so much as they're easier to see. Okay. In other words, we've got the full moon up there. We've got a visual context that's easier to see what people are doing. Okay. More of the, if you will, open cases or unsolved cases will happen during a new moon because you don't necessarily see the evidence you're seeking. What are we looking at here? Because Benny's just written in here, inner Earth. Where are we? Oh. No, in all fairness, Henry, the moon itself, much like most of the planets and little planetoids and what have you, is a rock. Okay. It is an astronomical body. But no, it is not quote unquote alive. It's got a lot of living people on it, but the moon itself is neither a construct in human definition, nor is it a living entity. Okay, this said, And I'm going to say something here to you guys that many of you may go, no way, not happening. But wait 40 or 50 years, they'll come back with the proof for you. Is the moon has a very, very tiny atmosphere. When I'm talking tiny, I mean that far off the ground if it's tall. Probably a whole lot tighter, but I've got to give you an idea. So there we have it. Okay. But no, the moon itself was put there, when it was put in place. Okay. Now, many planets just simply evolve under normal circumstances. In the case of Earth and a number of other planets, okay, they were built, like the particles that were needed were collected and put right in place so they could connect properly. Okay, this is why we end up with, and why we've got some plants that are alive and active, and other ones that are just a rock. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with being just a rock. I mean, heck, I've been a mushroom for most of my life. As in, people keep me in the dark and keep feeding me bull. Guess what? Now, I will tell you that Henry's asking, does the moon have a soul like the Earth, and do other bodies in the solar system have souls? Vulcan does. Okay, Vulcan does have its own soul. Okay, and it is an interesting place. Yes, Henry, that is very much the case. Henry just goes, sometimes a rock is just a rock. And sometimes we handle things by not handling them. But Vulcan itself does have a soul. Okay. And I believe, the other one that I know of that has a soul, and you'll like this one, is Cruenia. Okay. And of course, now you're going to ask, where is Cruenia? Because we're not told. NASA knows about it. It's, and I forget whether it's I think the apex is the furthest point away. So I may have the terms backwards. But Cruenia at its apex, at its furthest point, is out somewhere about 2/3 of the way between Mars and Jupiter. Okay, I believe I believe it's Mars and Jupiter. And then, on its closest point is just inside or just outside the orbit of Mercury. Like it's right in that point. But the kicker to it is it comes in on a 30-degree angle. Okay. That's how that all fits together. And since Nibiru didn't have a moon in the first place, no. Earth's moon was Earth's moon all along. Okay, well, as soon as it got put in place. Okay, but Nibiru itself is not a part of that equation. At least not from anything I've come up with. Okay. But, is the moon getting ready to depart? Well, let's face it doesn't have a lot of interest in it. Okay. But no, the moon itself, like there is talk about the moon being moved into position and placed there by somebody. And technically the answer would be yes, but we are not talking about a corporeal race. We're talking about the same individual, okay, that built the Earth, moved a baby moon, if you will, into place. Okay. In other words, I need a construct here that will hold Earth in a static pattern, that will keep it balanced. Okay. Now, the same thing was done on the other side of the sun. Another planet was built to create a counterbalance. This is just one of those neat little situations where mankind's predilection for feeling like they can control what's going on, or like they have dominant control over it, is kind of entertaining in a lot of ways. Well, I do have to look that up. I've got notes here on stuff. Like I said, I'm going through pages of stuff. Right. Benny, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you might want to double check. Because Earth is not a prison. Hey Nathan, glad you're here. Glad you could join us. First and foremost, Earth itself was not a trap. Absolutely. However, I do caution you if you're going that direction there. Henry's just asking, can you tell us Earth's true name? Absolutely. But if you're thinking of it in gaming terms, it won't work for controlling her. But her name, the one she gave me, was Itza. Okay. And, from her standpoint, she is a very vibrant little individual, a little temperamental on occasion. But that's who she is. And, many of you know Earth or as Gaia or as Mother Earth. I got told that her actual name is Itza. And she got to choose her name. Unlike human babies, who the parents go, this is what we're going to call you. That's the easy part. I'll do one better for you. Oh, what did I do there? That was just wrong. I hit a wrong button here. There we go. We'll do this. And here is how you spell it. Well, actually, this is how you spell Itza. Okay. YTSAU is how I've always spelled it. Okay. The pronunciation was the easy part. Now, Blue, you're asking, you've heard that the planet hidden behind the sun is Nibiru. I'm not entirely certain what you've heard, so I'll go with it. But the one on the other side of the sun in direct matched orbit with Earth, that is Mobius. Okay. Now Nibiru, last I heard, was still on the outskirts of our solar system, gearing up to come through. Yeah, the questions came in awfully fast there, Nathan. But you are right. They were very good questions. When we look at the planet on the other side of the sun, okay, Nibiru, last I heard, was still outside the orbit of Pluto and getting ready to come back in, which, by the way, means it is not a planet. Nibiru is a manned ship, because if you think about it, a planet that size coming through the heart of the solar system would tear the solar system apart on just the gravitational field, unless it had the technological capacity or natural capacity to counter the gravimetric fields. Okay, so this is the nice part about it. But is it coming back in? Yes. Is it on the other side of the sun? Well, I suspect that depends on the day of the week. Because given that it's a ship, it can go where it will. and it doesn't really take as much time to get to where it's heading than what people think. So when you're looking at the moon, and again, the moon itself is directly responsible for the emotional state of Esau. Okay, Benny, I'm not getting into that one. There is an interesting theory out there, and being as I am not an astronomer, okay, that thing that we look at off of Earth, from everything I know, and people can argue the point, I'm just not going to. Okay, from everything I know, that is the sun that we're living with. There is rumor, and I call it rumor because I've never seen any indication of it, okay, that Earth is also living under a binary star. But I've never seen any indication that this is the case. Okay. So from that standpoint, okay, is the light from the sun absolutely, is it the right frequency for life? The answer is yes. Obviously, we have life. Okay, but is our local sun simulated? Not in the slightest, any more than you are. And not from anything I've got to go with. But this is one of those things where it's an issue of people can believe what they will. Many people still believe the earth is flat. And I'm telling you, never mind the scientific side of it. I've looked at it from orbit. And I can pretty much, from my standpoint, I can look at it and go, not flat. Doesn't matter what the masses believe. Okay. That being said, okay, maybe, and I'm just going to put it out there because I keep getting people asking me this. Maybe I'm completely off my nut. And this whole thing is literally, this whole thing of life is nothing but a computer program. We're all controlled by somebody else and we've got no control over our own life at all. Now, you can believe that if you'd like. And there's all sorts of things that go hand in hand with going there. Well, I will grant you this. I will grant you that one there, Benny. That I wouldn't necessarily say nothing that you were taught was right. Okay. But I will tell you that everything they taught was not wrong. Okay. But you are more than welcome to believe what you will. Okay. The way I look at it is this. Okay. Anyway, I could get into philosophical debates. I'm not about to. It just doesn't do anybody any good. So we're going to go with the idea. We're just going to work with the premise that the sun is what the sun is, and that Earth itself is a real construct that we are not trapped on, aside from the fact that as a corporeal life form, you're not getting off it anytime soon and staying off it. You end up in outer space in this kind of a body. You're likely, if you don't have a compensating vehicle or protective suit, you're going to end up dead. Okay, you can debate whether or not you're alive or you're dead, doesn't matter. Okay, but we're going to go with the idea that every one of us is a real individual, not a simulacrum, not a computer program, not living in a petri dish. Okay, if we do not have baselines, there is no way of having any sort of a discussion. Okay, it's just that simple. And this is one of the reasons why I don't get into the political field or the religious one for that matter, because they do exactly the same thing. Now, with that in mind, okay, as long as we work with that, we can work with something. Everybody is absolutely entitled to their own belief. Okay, but we're going to work under those parameters. Football, no. Everything that has a soul. People, aliens, animals, plants, elementals, elementals or the elements themselves. Everything that has an actual soul goes to the same heaven, the same purgatory, and has options on multiple different hells. Well, multiple different heavens too. It depends on the individual's belief structure. Now, the nice little part about it, and I'm just going to make this caution to everybody, okay? Because Benny's just posted. I ain't even got warmed up here. Here's the good news, Benny. I've got no qualms about ignoring people. Okay. I've done that, and I've been told I'm rude, I'm uncivilized because I will hang up on people. But the reality of it is that there is enough conflict on this world. I am not about to invite it in. Oh, absolutely. The one thing that I will absolutely agree with you there, Benny. Literally, we know just, at least myself, I know just enough to know I don't know enough. And I know, and the more I know, the less I know. The reality is there is so much that people don't get. Okay. The moon is just one aspect of it. Now, I caught wind probably about 5 years ago, maybe a little longer. Time's always a fun one. Okay. That mankind is currently developing technology to pull an asteroid into geosynchronous orbit around the moon in order to build a star base, not a star base, but a starship construction facility under the auspices that it will be easier to build a starship on a low gravity body than it will to launch the entire thing off the planet, which realistically makes total sense. The weird part about it is because of the fact, and you won't know this, nobody will know this for 100 to 150 years anyway. At least I wouldn't bet on it happening any earlier. Lunar, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I will have to take your word for that, Adam. Bearing in mind that I don't know what Utopia Plantatia is. Sorry, Planitia. Being as I don't know where that is, essentially it boils down to this. They've got plans and they're working on the technology to make it possible of moving an asteroid into geosynchronous orbit. Now, here's the thing. Remember what I said a little while ago, that there is this tiny itty bitty atmosphere that is only, probably only a couple millimeters thick on the moon now. Clearly, you're not going to breathe it. But you pull another body into geosynchronous orbit, it becomes the moon of the moon. Thank you so much, Adam. Yes, I did used to watch Star Trek. Matter of fact, I still do once in a while. But my memory for movie names is not necessarily great. But thank you for the clarification. And with that reference, yes, very much like those. When that asteroid gets moved into place, it will have an impact on that tiny little atmospheric envelope. And it would not surprise me in 500 years to find that the moon actually has a fully functional atmosphere that can be worked with. And of course, by then, the HARP system that they're currently working with What's this? And Luna's just going, still daylight. Public utility workers are staging through our canyon, 4:10 to 5:10. I'm not sure what that's referring to be honest with you, Luna. Of course, I don't watch the... and see, I don't watch the news at all. But when they get that asteroid in orbit, it's going to start having effects on the local atmosphere and net result on the local activity there. Now, the neat part about it, as much as it did come to my attention, that China is looking to claim the moon for itself. Okay, the off-worlders have simply gone, the moon belongs to the people of Earth, to all of them. Okay, and therefore they won't do anything, and they're borrowing it right now because mankind isn't using it. Yeah, they kind of have to. I mean, let's face it, winter can be a rough one, and there's a lot of work that's got to be redone there. Lunar. What have we got here? Mudslides, electrical grid repairs, projects, and umpteen thousand power outages due to hiccups. And you got to give the city workers credit because they work in some of the strangest times because of the fact that, well, it's easier to work on the side of the road when there isn't 8,000 cars going by you. Now, the reality of it is, when we start looking at the moon and the impact that the moon has on people, you got to remember, as things get more evolved, as people become more aware of their emotions and subsequently more reactionary to them, okay, what you'll find is things get a little bit screwy. Well, I can't tell you how much, but I can tell you this, Nathan. Because Nathan's just said, I love talking about moon things. It makes me wonder how much our past civilization had to do with the moon actively. Well, I can tell you the Egyptians had direct contact. The ancient Greeks had direct contact. What became the Mobians definitely had direct contact, and the people that built Stonehenge built it because of moon activity. Okay, yes, they aligned it perfectly from an astrological standpoint and a number of other things. Okay, but what they don't tell you is it was also a landing pad. Okay, the moon itself, people have been watching it for centuries. Okay, even the people before Egypt. Well, in all fairness, you think about it, Egypt was like 8,000, 10,000 years ago. And you can go back to Lemuria, and they were dealing with it regularly, and they were 40 to 50,000 years ago. Mankind has been here for a while. The other thing is, people keep asking me, is the moon hollow? The answer to that is no. It does, however, and again, and I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to anyway, this is literally my opinion. From my research, from my experience, have I gone and done any quote-unquote research, as in read what other people wrote? I don't see the point. I find it boring. Usually I find it conflicted. And I shouldn't say, well, it is. It's conflicted what I've come to understand. But much of it reiterates the same thing. And that is one of those, Nathan, as a matter of fact, that's not a bad idea. Where are we here? Over on the other side of the room, of course. So I'm just going to move this out of the way so I can actually see what I'm writing. Today is the 8th, tomorrow's booked. There we go. Assuming I don't get completely sidetracked. March the 11th, this coming Tuesday. I just marked into my calendar there that we will deal with Atlantis and what went down there and what is going on. Where did it go? Did it actually crash, or what the story? Okay. Oh, I'm just trying to make sure everything gets scheduled. I did find somewhere around here, probably up here. What you triggered, Nathan, was a topic for Tuesday. Let me just see what I'm looking at. Whoop, there it is. Whoop, there it is. Nope, that's not it. I just found it the other day, and of course now I don't have it. This is why I'm trying to eliminate all this excess paperwork. Oh, was looking for a yellow sheet. I got a whole bunch of things listed here to deal with as far as topics go. Remember I said that I had a list and it went missing? Where are we here? Yes, March 11th. This is assuming something doesn't go sideways, at which point I have to modify things. But everything's looking pretty solid at this point. So today we're dealing with the moon and side effects thereof. On tomorrow, I just leave open topic. And then, of course, on Monday, we're going to be dealing with empathy and the impact that can have. Okay, but all of this is literally interconnected. Because when you take a look at the moon, you look at the gravitational impact, and you got to remember, it affects people's perceptions. The moon does. Because of the pull on the liquid side of what humans are. Okay, and the second you adjust the electromagnetic field in a liquid that's got a current running through it, you modify the current. Net result, many people that are already empathic are going to pick up. They're going to pick up a new, they're going to pick up more information. Luna goes, the joy of living on a tidal locked planet surrounded by volcanoes. Oh yeah, absolutely. But it would be a real good idea to set off 4 of the local volcanoes around Yellowstone in order to avoid the disaster that is likely to happen if we don't. Oh, he must have had a lot of fun there, Lunar. Lunar's just saying our friend Dale surfed an entire lunar cycle. I'm guessing he came ashore periodically, but no, the thing is, because the moon affects liquids and affects electrical fields, okay, what happens is the closer it gets, or the brighter it is, hey, Benny, how you doing? Glad you could join us. This morning he was here. Tyler. Oh. The neat part about it, from my standpoint, well, yeah, I could Google it. The neat part about it, from my standpoint, I used to love the water. I used to swim all the time. And then I drowned. And that took away a lot of the fun in getting into the water. But because the moon has such a direct impact, okay, I suspect very strongly, and I've never done any research into it. I don't know if anybody has. But when the moon is full, it would be entertaining to find out if there's been any research done. Okay, do we get 3? Drowning is not a fun way to die, by the way. It really isn't. It just completely screws up your perceptions. But I do feel for you. Yeah, I'm still a little lost how I was pulled out. I suspect my father. But do I know for certain I was down? Oh yeah. But when we start looking at the actual impact of the moon, we have to. The thing I was about to say, then got so rudely sidetracked in my own head. I don't never know if it's ever been checked, but it would be fascinating. It would be fascinating to find out, um, if water actually boils faster when the moon is full. You know, it would be an interesting thing, really not a critical issue from my standpoint, just a curiosity thing. And I keep forgetting to do this, so I'm going to do this right now while I think about it. And that is what I want. Let's move that up out of the way so I can actually find what I'm looking for. And Nathan, you have been in and out. Here we are. Where are we? There we are, the Quantum Show. Nathan has been in and out today. And this is Nathan's show. This is the one to pop in, take a peek, see what he has to say, see if you like it. If you do, give him a thumbs up, and then turn around, subscribe to his channel, and share the daylights out of it. Because he's got some really neat ideas. You know, one day I'll get some time to actually settle down and sit down. You know, one day I'll get to sit down and talk to him again. But my life gets a little screwy. I keep adding things to it and then go, why, pray tell, am I having trouble functioning? Think it has to do with the fact I got too many things on the go a lot of the time. And of course, Shadow was in here earlier. Don't know if he's still hanging around right now, but this is Shadow's show. Okay, and again, same applies. Go take a look at what he's been up to. Listen to what he's got to say. He and his son come up with some great ideas where it comes to working with figures and what have you. Okay, so I mean, we are looking at an interesting situation there. You know, so take a look at it, listen to what he has to say, watch a few of his videos. If you like him, give him a thumbs up, and definitely subscribe to the channel. And then, of course, once you've done that, do him a favor and just share the daylights out of the channel. Okay. Now, I look at the moon, I've always paid attention to the moon. Okay. Primarily because I'm up at really stupid hours of the day. You know, excellent, Luna. Glad to hear it. You know, I end up and like this morning when I got up, I thought I'd overslept because it was almost 6 o'clock in the morning. And then it dawned on me, I didn't go to bed until 2. Which may be a little late as far as that goes. You know, but when you're actually paying attention to what you're feeling, and if you're feeling things a little off, one thing I strongly recommend, especially for those of you that know you're empathic, write down what you're feeling. Write down the date and the time so you can compare it later and see what kind of a path you're on. See just exactly how stable things are moving or how unstable. Because as a friend of mine put it, to know oneself is to know all. You've got to know where your boundaries are. You've got to know what works for you. Okay. And like I said, karmic law is real cut and dried. Okay. Be true to yourself first. This is why I tell people, you know, I know what I know. Okay. Can I prove 90% of it? No. But logic does corroborate a lot of it. Okay. You know, do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. If you desire to be treated with respect, treat the people around you with respect. It does not guarantee they'll treat you the same, but it does stack the deck in your favor. Hey, Beck, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I'm not entirely certain I've seen you in here before, but welcome aboard. Always nice seeing new people come through the door. Or if you've been here before, hey, what the heck? Welcome aboard anyway. You know, in my case, I deal with people as best I can. Okay. Thank you so much, Yldrbac. And for that, come to think of it, see, and this is one of those funny little details. I've heard people tell me I shouldn't do this. You know, you shouldn't promote somebody else's channel. I'm like, why not? There are 8 billion people and then some on this planet. And rest assured, recommending other people and saying, hey, these are good people, go and listen to them. There's the link for Dave's show. Okay. Now, much like I don't with many people, I'm on a channel once in a while to take a look. Some channels I don't go on at all because what I found is it just doesn't work well for me. Okay. But where is that list I had? Because I'm just thinking we've got that dealing. Oh, yes. Interesting situation. I was asked this. I've got a list here of different topics that people have asked me to look into. I finally found the list again. Well, I've got Atlantis set up. Okay. There's a couple of requests that were here I'm not going to be going into. But we are going to deal with something, and I just got to check my schedule here. And yes, I'm a bit of a dinosaur. Empathy Atlantis. Wednesday. Let's deal with that other real neat little thing. On Wednesday, on the 12th, I'm going to be opening a can of worms with something that many of you have heard of called walk-ins. That is very much the case there, Beck. More often than not, and I see it in the UFO community, just like every other community has their ins and outs, where people will go, I believe in UFOs, I believe in aliens, okay, but it's one thing to believe, it's another thing to look at them head on. Okay, it's another to run into them face to face. I'll tell you, I've been dealing with this my entire life, and it still catches me off guard on occasion. Like the day that I was working for Dairy Queen, and I had a Martokian show up in Dairy Queen, and it turns out they really do like ice cream. They don't have it up there. Something about no cows as we know them, and therefore no ice cream. And I believe that's only on Earth. Pity. Now, I gotta ask, Lunar. I gotta ask what unalive themselves is. I've honestly never heard the term before. Zombie, absolutely. Zombifying, you name it. But I've never actually heard the term unalive. Unless you talk about the carryover from a Shadow Walker. And yes, somewhere in this mess I've got the actual name, which is something that will be coming out with the new races, with the second printing of Races of the Worlds. Okay. Oh. Okay. Then how about if we don't say it on YouTube, because I don't like the idea of it being banned, of the channel being banned. This is why I don't get into politics and I don't get into religion too terribly much. Pretty much the same thing. No, actually, that was what I was thinking in the first place. But no, a walk-in is a whole different issue. The alien walking into the ice cream shop, that was just a day for the ages. Okay. the gentleman had come here. See, we call the place Mars. Okay, they call it Martok. Hence why I call them and why they're referred to as Martokians. Yes, I did say walk-ins, but we were talking. The reality there, Lunar, is, as you know, I end up going in like 4 directions at the same time half of the time. Walk-ins are a spiritual thing that we will get into. It's essentially a voluntary soul swap, which we will get in detail on Wednesday. Okay, the issue of the Martokian was simply a memory that kind of popped up and apparently created a little confusion. However, it's got nothing to do with the spiritual walk-in. But you are right, I did say walk-in. But when we take a look at the way that the different bodies, in all fairness, the moon is the most obvious, but other large bodies also have an effect on gravity flow. Okay, when you get closer to Jupiter, for instance, which is a gas giant, emotions can get absolutely screwy because of the gravitational field. Okay, this is what some people in the movies have referred to as space sickness. It's not a case of getting claustrophobic, although that happens too. It's a case of getting completely wonky, much like the submarine crews in World War II had troubles with. Of course, in their case, it was combined spaces, and then punch a hole, and all of a sudden you're sinking quick and drowning, which is no fun, by the way. We've already discussed how annoying that is. But whenever you're dealing with a large body that produces a gravitational field, or you're dealing with a weapon that can affect emotions, and yes, those do exist. That's one of the sections I've added, or more to the point, expanded on in the Races of the Worlds, in the second printing, is some of the technology that is in existence. Okay. Joe goes, this is loopy, but an alien at a wedding? There are many times when an off-worlder or when an alien shows up at a wedding. Okay, they usually don't make themselves known in that capacity because think about it. A wedding itself can be stressful enough. Not a problem there at all, Beck. I really do appreciate your time and your coming in here. The reality of it from when we're looking at this issue with the wedding, the one thing you got to remember if you're inviting an off-worlder to a wedding, make sure you double check what their dietary requirements are, because they may be different than yours. One thing I do strongly recommend if you're inviting a reptilian, especially if you're inviting a Teklek, tell them no. Ladies' fingers are not actually an appetizer, so you can't have them. If they're attached, you leave them alone. But you can have a lot of fun in this world. And the biggest thing that I always found, and I've been asked why I deal with them. Well, I don't see any difference between off-worlders, ancient races, and humans. Okay, they're all just different people. Yes, they've got various different languages. Okay, unfortunately, there are ways of working around that. The difficult part for most people is realizing that what you might think is your imagination, especially those of you that have dreamed or imagined you end up on the moon. It may not be quite as imaginary as you think. How you doing, Sandra? Glad you could join us. Again, it is very strongly recommended that when you have a memory like that, absolutely sit down and write down your experience. Put the date down, the time you remembered it, and as much detail as you can remember. Even if all you remember is sitting in a room, like one memory that I ended up with where it started was me sitting in a room, essentially on a bench, with a kind of like steam rolling across the floor. I had my feet in the floor and I could feel the floor beneath, but I couldn't see it. The odds there, Sandra, there are many ships that come and go off of the moon. Now, here's a neat little thing. Okay, you had a dream. Sandra's going, I had a dream yesterday that the moon sped by and flashed and disappeared. Okay, what that dream may have been was more an issue of here's the moon, and you've got another ship that like a really big ship, and there are some that are absolutely huge. Okay, and it flies by and it blinks out the moon altogether, just that quick, and just blinking back. You likely were looking at a ship going in front of the moon. Okay, I've yet to see the moon itself just up and vanish. Although I'm sure if Penn and Teller could have gotten up to the moon, they could have made a good run at it. Hey, Chad, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Matter of fact, let's see if we can do the other part of that glad you could join us thing. There we are. And as we have been doing our best, okay, there is Chad's channel. And again, go over, take a peek at his channel, listen to what he has to say. If you like what he's saying, Chad, that's just depressing. How long you figure you're going to have to wait for them? The parts I'm referring to. Hopefully not too terribly long. But yeah, absolutely. Take a look at Chad's channel. He's usually got some really neat topics and that he covers. Right. So have a look. What are we? Just a few days. Oh, good. Yeah, I remember one guy, he was running an RC, he ran it off the edge of a cliff. Wasn't a good idea. It was not a helicopter. But it did fly kind of like a rock. Kind of looked like shrapnel at the end of it. He figured he was just going to be, but I'll tell you the best one, it has nothing to do with UFOs, but for those of you that are vehicular enthusiasts, okay, I watched a guy way back when I was in grade 12, okay, and back then, people were quite prone to trying to race down the street in front of the school. Well, this guy took off like a bat out of heck and made an absolutely spot-on shift at the worst possible time. And for those of you that know how to drive standard, this makes total sense. But he got it wound up, right? And he got her up into fourth gear. He went to shift from fourth. And he made a spot-on perfect shift into reverse. Now you can picture what that did if you know anything about vehicles. And vehicles are not my strong suit, in case you hadn't noticed. Okay, but this guy made a perfect shift, corkscrewed the drive shaft, split the tranny, shattered I think it's called the transaxle by the bubble on the back axle. Every rod and every piston continued out of the engine, whichever direction it was heading. Right. And he came to an absolute locking stop. Right. Now, the engine was toast. So was the car, and the guy only broke a guy. I don't even know if he broke ribs, but he certainly bruised them. Las Vegas, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Happy Easter to you as well. Things are changing in this world. And the fact of the matter is that we absolutely have to, we really have to take a look at things and make certain we focus on putting forth the positive side of things. We can continue talking about or projecting the negative. We can continue finding ways. Like there was a chap the other night being last night, and I think I mentioned this earlier, and it annoyed me in a way, and oddly, because I really don't care. Well, that's not entirely correct. Apparently I do. But somebody came in there and went, I know more than he does. And I'm thinking, like, probably. Okay. But is that going to change my outlook? Not a whole lot. I'm just looking at Nathan's going, I'm working on just the planning stages on making a kind of RC. I need an astromech center foot to be the whole drive unit for it. That ought to be entertaining. Absolutely. And just remember, the one thing that I always caution people when you're in the process of planning something, okay, always make sure if you can think of a small detail that might be necessary, mark it down. It may prove to be the whole thing that brings it all together properly. And the reality is, as it was said in Star Trek in The Journey Home, the more complicated things get, the easier they are to screw up. Okay. Mankind is doing a bang up job of making a mess of things. What they're not doing a bang up job on, at least not yet. And I'm still trying to figure out why this push to colonize another planet. Okay, there's lots of room left on Earth. Earth has more than enough room to actually produce what it requires if we bypass the greed factor. Now, the moon itself, it's not called colonizing. Okay, it's already occupied. They call it invading at that point. Unless you're planning, of course, if any group of men go up to the moon and on the light side of the moon, on this side of the moon, go, okay, let's start building a station here. It's not occupied. Nobody owns the moon. Okay. I mean, it is there. Slap me in the back of the head, make my mouth work. The moon is there as a counterpoint to help govern the weather on this planet. Okay. Yes, HARP is being used. But you got to remember, HARP itself is a first generation a first generation atmospheric generator. Okay. But like I said, the moon itself is a wonderful little setup. Okay. It brings about a lot of positive change. And as long as we take a look at that, we can actually work with it. MFR6. I'm afraid to ask what the MFR stands for. Nathan's just gone. I have most of the droid built now. He's in the hallway. MFR6. Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah, I'm still. By the way, Nathan, maybe you're the one to ask. Do you by any chance, and I suspect eBay, but do you by any chance know where somebody could find Shadowrun figures, Shadowrun Aftermath, post-apocalyptic figures? Much like I've already got a staggering number of D&D ones. I'm thinking probably eBay, but I'm looking into those and into models. And no, before anybody jumps on that one, no, I'm not planning on building the moon. I figure it's already built. It's doing a great job. But the thing like I said, if you don't, the big thing to remember is yes, a full moon will affect everybody, but it affects the people born under a new moon more adversely than it affects people born under a full moon, and vice versa. Okay, so this is one of those things that we have to take a look at. Okay, now before I run out of time, I probably should have said this before, but if you like the channel, if you like the stream, absolutely give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of it. Okay. Hey, David, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I am now that I've got my list I had earlier, I can actually start laying it out. But I'm not going to get too terribly far ahead of myself. Somebody signed a couple of the topics that people have asked. Okay, that I haven't gotten to yet. I was asked at one point to discuss the Tartarian lifestyle. Okay, numerology, astrology, religion itself. There's a reason I don't go into discussing mainstream religion. Okay, primarily it's that thing about being banned because of saying something that somebody's certain to be unhappy with. The Alpha themselves, as well as the doppelgangers. Okay, there's a couple of other things that were on that list, but we've already gotten into them. If you have a topic, much like Joe thankfully did the other day, absolutely let me know. Okay, I will be more than happy to look into whether we can work with it. Okay, a couple of topics I will not ever discuss is how to legitimately overthrow a government or a corporation. Okay, from a gaming or from a writing standpoint, I don't have a lot of problem with it. Okay, I do appreciate that, Nathan. I appreciate the confirmation. Oh, well, thank you very much there, Beck. I appreciate that. And no, we won't get into it. The reality of it is, I've made the mistake on occasion. And I mean, for me to stay on top of everything, good luck with it. I do my best, but the reality is it doesn't work all that well. It's funny. I knew I was writing 30 some books. And then it got a little carried away and added 2 more. Ended up adding a couple more books to the list. I have started writing. I was talking when we had that conversation the topic the other day on how to get your finances straightened around. I have literally started putting that on paper. Okay. And therefore, if I stay on top of it, well, if everything goes according to plan, Races of the Worlds, the second printing will come out. The Return to Paradise, Believe in Your Finances, okay, are already in the works. Okay. I've also started a few other books and I'm just literally going through them, to add to them. Because, I didn't have enough to write. So now I'm looking at this neat so I've got a couple of problems I'm dealing with that can cause havoc. In case you hadn't noticed the last couple of weeks, things got a little screwy as far as family issues went. Oh, that's just terrible, Luna. Yeah, absolutely. Let us know how that goes next time you're on, if you'd be kind enough, or if you choose to. But thanks so much for joining us. Luna. You're more than welcome there, Lunar. David is asking, are the aliens concerned about the concerned the Ukraine conflict could turn nuclear? Honestly, not really. They already proved. I mean, could it technically go nuclear? Yes. But here's the thing. Back in 1996, the world went, I believe the term is DEFCON 1, where everybody had their silos lit. And then all of a sudden they all got shut down. The off-worlders, they will permit nuclear testing or a nuclear bomb. But because it's part of the evolution of power. Okay, and I mean of power production. But if it grows to the point that it's going to turn into a nuclear holocaust, okay, no, they will stand. They're not worried about it because they'll just come down and shut the thing down. You can carry on throwing stones back and forth. But the thing is, it doesn't have to get there. But people have to start looking at the fact that it doesn't have to get there. Literally billions of people sit and listen to the world, listen to the so-called authorities going, our world is going to end. We're going to go to war, etc., etc. I've run this rhetoric before. Yes, it is possible. But is it likely? No. Okay. And the more we focus on the things that are actually on a positive faction, okay, the better off this planet will be. But no, see, the off-worlders, their doctrine, their concern is the survival of Earth. Not of the people, but of the planet. The nice part about it, like I've been ignoring I literally have not even tuned in them once. Okay. I keep getting bits and pieces from people. But that is one of these wars that is just kind of, frankly, war itself has never, ever, ever in recorded history brought peace. It has brought quiet, but it never brings peace. Because the second a war turns into, I conquered you, sooner or later, somewhere down the road, that conquered country is going to strike back. And we go back at it. This is something that we've got to focus on modifying. Yeah, I don't doubt that at all there, David. And I know a lot of people that do follow history. Myself, I never studied history, I just remember it. And yes, I've run into situations multiple times where I've remembered a piece of history without picking up a history book. I didn't do well in geography either, because I never could understand if you can't draw a line on the sandbox and say you can't cross there. It never added up that you could draw a line on a piece of paper and have it have any more effect. But much as I've got a great deal of respect for the people that join the military, okay, in defense of their country, their family, whatever, I've got a great deal of respect for those. Okay, I still do not support the concept of war. I love the way that Mother Teresa put it when she was asked to come to an anti-war rally. She told the people flat out, you will never find me at an anti-war rally. You want to have a peace rally? I'll be there with bells on if I can arrange the time. Okay. And there is a very big difference between focusing on anti-war, okay, as compared to focusing on peace. Thank you so much there, David. I appreciate it. In my eyes, I was lucky. My whole family, well, my dad and all of that, and the back family, all of them were in the military. For some reason, the modern military came to the conclusion that an epileptic and an automatic weapon was a bad mix. And yet the same government that came to that conclusion took a paranoid schizophrenic and licensed him as a demolitions expert. Now, I'm really wondering how they make their decisions up, but hey, what the heck? Rebellions don't work there, Nathan. You know that as well as I do. I mean, yeah, they work for the moment, but you want to see what happens with a rebellion? And I think the book's been banned. Okay, but read Animal Farm. Shows you what the outcome of a rebellion usually looks like. So I mean, from that standpoint, and I mean, again, tongue in cheek or not, for me, I've been accused of not having much of a sense of humor. Okay, but where are we here? Oh, we are getting down, aren't we? But no, the reality of it is this, the war over in the Ukraine is overstated. Okay. One of the things I will say where it comes to the off-worlders, where it comes to their perspective on Earth, as far as Earth's ability to cause conflict, their standing rule is mankind has no clue how to run a war. They just don't. And of course, the standing joke up around the tables up there really boils down to that one. I will agree with you there, Nathan. You support the warriors, not the war. In other words, the people involved, give them all the respect they can. You can, And up here in Canada, I don't hear a lot about it, but in the States, you guys have something called stolen valor, which I think is, quite frankly, in my opinion, one of the most heinous methods of disrespect to that entire protective side of things. I wish there was more that was done to the people that are actually doing that. And frankly, putting them in jail doesn't work for me. Okay, put them on a chain gang, cleaning up the streets or something to that effect. Okay, absolutely. But just locking them in jail and giving them. I'm not entirely surprised there, Adam. Canada and the States aren't really that different from each other. I think that has something to do with sharing a border. But, I mean, it's absolutely pathetic. That sort of thing just absolutely I find appalling. David, I agree with you wholeheartedly. That would work really nice. And let them see how well that works. I mean, I had a really good friend of a neighbor up until a year, maybe 2 years ago. Okay, we had a lot of discussions about his involvement in World War II. He was actually on the beach of Normandy. Okay, now that was a man that had a whole lot. Yeah, absolutely there, David. And I'm not, the funny part about it, when you start looking at that side, and I know we've gone sideways from the moon, aside from the emotional side, but this whole idea of Remembrance Day being one day out of the year, why forget about the people that got the freedom for us in the first place for the other 364? Yeah. Ultimately, the thanks for bringing that back, Nathan. The thing that they joke about is mankind beaks off about being so good at war, and of course, the off-worlders are standing there going, "If you guys are so good at war, why do you have a population rise?" Right? And I did ask somebody that one day, and you know what their response was? I mean, it was absolutely priceless. The response when I made that comment, the response was, well, it's because we're better at sleeping with each other than we are at killing each other. And yeah, the reality, Nathan, I agree with you. Stolen valor is a nerve. It's one that should touch everybody. Okay, it's one of those things that should be taken a look at and recognized for what it is. It's got nothing to do with valor. it's got everything to do with greed. And I don't know if there's another way to be more disrespectful to people. Lord knows if I did know it, I wouldn't use it anyway. I do my best to be respectful to people. I'm just not good at biting my tongue on occasion. But no, I've got a list of topics. If there are topics that you guys desire to take a look at, absolutely let me know. Nathan's going, once a woman said I was lucky for having GI Bill for college. It touched that nerve. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much the reality. The fact that you survived. I mean, no offense to Nathan, I'd still talk to you if you were dead. But it is a lot easier for other people. Absolutely, football, and happy Easter to you too as well. I always got a kick out of Easter, and that's actually not a bad topic to look at, but the danger with that is it goes straight into the religious side and guaranteed it's going to take somebody off. But as I was told one day, if I'm not taking somebody off, I'm not doing my job right. With that in mind, guys, we are hitting the 6:30 mark here. So if you like the stream, do me a favor and give me a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And, share the daylights out of it. And just for your guys' edification, we're sitting at 21 thumbs up right now, which is just absolutely fantastic. I wonder, I'm just going to double check something here and just hit refresh and get a new count on it. Maybe. What are we sitting at? Nope, still sitting at 479, which is okay. In any event, Jessica, how you doing? Caught us right at the tail end. Just to be clear, I run the shows I run this stream from 4:30 to 6:30 PST. Okay, just in case. Thank you so much, Henry. And guys, I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for sharing your time with me. I really do appreciate it. The questions that came in were fantastic. I will be back again tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, of course, is Sunday. I'm done with reading the birth. I'm done with reading the birth of the wolf pack. But tomorrow, after the open topic at 4:30 tomorrow afternoon, I will be coming back on to read a few chapters over the next couple of weeks out of the end of an epic. Okay, with that in mind, guys, thanks so much for sharing your time with me. I really appreciate it. I will catch up with you again. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.